Hi everyone, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. Today, well, this weekend actually, is the Easter long weekend, and so we are going to be doing a lot of stuff together. However, I have just had a procedure, so I have to be a little bit careful with what I do. So we're mostly going to be doing inside jobs, so I'm going to treat this week that I have off to recover as a every little bit counts challenge, which, if you are familiar with Three Rivers Homestead, they basically focus on not trying to get massive amounts done and trying to have a stroke in the process, but trying to focus on just getting a little bit done every day that helps you get towards your goal of maximizing your harvest and becoming more food independent and getting your pantry all stocked up. So that's what we're doing today. I am harvesting these beets. They have been here for so long, and this soil is a different soil to the soil I used in the other garden beds, and it doesn't hold moisture the same way, so things have struggled to grow a little bit, and I really want to amend these beds, but that will depend how I'm feeling over the coming days. So what I'm going to be doing is getting these guys, and I should have done this ages ago, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but it didn't occur to me. I'm going to get these guys all prepped up and cooked up and peeled and diced up and popped in the freeze dryer so that we can make beetroot powder, which we can then add to anything we want. We are also going to be trying to can a bunch of things to get them out of the freezer and obviously freeze drying. We are outside at the moment chatting because the freeze dryer is on and it makes a horrible noise inside in the kitchen, so any kitchen work that we do in this video will actually need to be voice-overed, so sorry about that for those of you who don't like voice-overed videos, but you don't like the freeze dryer noise, trust me. So we're going to try and use lemon juice that we harvested at the old house to make more strawberry lemonade concentrate, although I really need to finish drinking what we have. I just kind of got out of the habit of drinking it and forgot it was there, but I love it. We are going to can up some more marinara sauce, which we made in a recent tomato canning video together. We are going to try and do a tomato peach salsa, which I've made before and loved. I still have some spicy stuff left in the pantry, but I'm not a huge spice person. The other thing we've got going this long weekend is carrots that won't come out of the ground, which is fine because I can't eat them, so we're harvesting them for the pups anyway. But I've got some human broth going in the slow cooker. So what human broth is it sounds a bit mad, but it's just the way I label the jars. Human broth is bone broth made with things like onion in it, because I have a hip dysplasia pup, and I also have Birdie, who was, I suspect, fairly significantly beaten before she came to live with us, and she has a lot of pain in her back and her pelvis, we discovered recently. So I give them bone broth pretty regularly. What is that? Ugh. So I give them broth pretty regularly. Lately we've done some goat broth and turkey broth, sometimes beef broth, but obviously when I make broth for the puppies, I make sure it has no onions and things like that the puppies can't have. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about human broth. It is a broth with onion in it. But I'd like to get that canned this week too, seeing I actually have a bit of time off to actually do canning, which I find to be quite a time-consuming process, and obviously the freeze dryer is quite a time-consuming process, but now that the fan has been fixed, it's gonna make it a little bit more it's a little bit quieter actually, but hopefully it's going to be a little bit faster in the process of freeze drying because the fan's actually effective. But for now, we have got to get all these carrots harvested because they're starting to go to seed and I don't want to waste them. Do you want one, Ravi? Good boy. But so I will smush these up and pop them in the puppy meals, which I've also got to make this week. I raw feed these guys, and so I have to make sure their meals are balanced and they get some veggies. And seeing as I am now sensitive to carrots, then the carrots are going to get eaten by these guys. Ordinarily I would give them to my best friend so that she doesn't have to buy them at the shops, but because our spring temperatures were really up and down, the carrots have been really woody. Puppies don't mind, humans do. So these ones are yellow carrots. This was supposed to be my rainbow carrot bed. It has red carrots and purple carrots, I think, from memory. I was very excited about this, but since it turned out on my allergy tests that I am sensitive to carrots, well, I can't eat any of them. So let's get them up so we can amend this bed and get it ready for some autumn crops. These carrots I'm pulling at the moment, or the ones I've just pulled, it seems I've just changed colour. I've just changed over to a purple carrot, but the atomic reds so far are the longest ones I've been pulling. It doesn't surprise me that they're not very long. This is a bed that I used the hugelkultur method of filling the bed. So underneath this soil, which as I said is not the best and is quite alkaline, which is annoying, but underneath the soil is quite a lot of tree that we actually cut down when we first moved in. So there's lots and lots of branches that fill up at least half of this bed. So whoa, okay, I take it back. That's the biggest one so far, and I love that it is a two-legged variety. Looks like it's a dancing carrot. Woo. I'm just coming across the name tag now. So these ones are, as I thought, purple dragon, but there are a lot more split carrots. So I don't know if that's a variety issue or a problem with this section of the bed drying out a bit much or whatever, but given that I'm not really all that concerned about the carrots, I'm just not going to worry about it. Whoa, there's a massive one in here. But it's like merged and become part of 12 different carrots.
I realised after the event that I cut too much off the ends of the beetroots to boil them, which meant a little bit of their colour leached out, but all in all I was happy with how they turned out. While they were on the stove boiling until they got soft, I got to work on washing the carrots, which turned out to be quite a job. It took me hours to get them all properly cleaned, and then from there I got them onto roasting pans covered in a little bit of coconut oil, because coconut oil is totally fine for dogs and it's just enough to actually roast them. And then I popped them in the oven and got them cooking. Once the beetroot was done, I popped them on the freeze dryer trays to get them into the freezer to pre-freeze before going into the freeze dryer. Unfortunately here I accidentally turned my mic off, so you won't get to hear the zucchini crunch once it comes out of the freeze dryer totally dry. When I freeze dry zucchini, which is often because zucchini plants are very productive, what I do is I blitz them up in my Thermomix and create zucchini powder, which I can then put into almost anything. So for example, I put about 2 cups of zucchini powder, which is God only knows how many zucchinis, into a batch of spaghetti bolognese, which meant that the kids, when they were eating the bolognese, were eating a ton of vegetables and they didn't even know it. And I find that it stores pretty well on the shelf. The only thing is that once you blend it up, you do get like a fine powder that escapes out the top of the Thermomix, but that's probably because the Thermomix is not designed for this sort of thing. I do have smaller NutriBullet style blenders, but I find that they heat up really quickly, and anything that I blend in them tends to get some moisture off the heat of the machine quite quickly, even if I do tiny batches. So basically I try and freeze dry in large batches, so that if I want to powder it like I do with zucchini, that I can powder everything all in one go. Or like I will do with the beetroot, I will blend the zucchini and powder it, and then I will just deal with the cubes of beetroot at a later date once the Thermomix has been cleaned and thoroughly dried, and that will let me make a beautiful beetroot powder. On the shelf, if I'm storing these for anything other than immediate use, I put a oxygen absorber in there with them, and then I seal them up. Often I will also vacuum seal them to make sure that I'm not actually having any moisture in there, because I have had things, even with oxygen absorbers, seemingly soften up in the pantry, and you can see the amount of powder escape that happens when dealing with zucchinis. But all in all, it makes an amazing product. With one batch of bone broth cooling on the table, it was time to get the next batch going. I like to leave my broth to cool down first on the kitchen bench, so that then I can put it in the fridge without heating up the whole fridge with the warmness of these glasses after they come out of the slow cooker. It's also trying to avoid carrying super hot glass or getting any thermal shock to the glass. And then the next day I scrape the fat off, which is then solid, and that's my way of making sure that my bone broth doesn't have any fat that could go rancid in it, or minimal, when I can things up. So I usually do about a 48-hour batch in the slow cooker. This zucchini that I'm getting ready for freeze drying is actually from last year, so I'm not really sure how well it's going to turn out, but I figured it's this or the compost bin, so I might as well try it, seeing I'm home for the week and I'm focusing on just getting little bits of food prep done as I heal up from my procedure and getting things into the freeze dryer. So in the old zucchini went with the beetroot. After putting the beetroot in jars, I got to blending up the zucchini, and to be honest, 99% of it worked totally beautifully. There must have been one or two seeds or something along those lines in one batch of the zucchini that wasn't perfectly dry, as I did end up during the course of this week with a batch that once I put it in the blender, it didn't blend perfectly and it went into clumps. So that stuff I gave to the puppies when I was making their dinner, and they got some yummy vegetables, which they were quite happy about. The next job on my list was to belatedly make my best friend's birthday cake. She had no requests, so I decided to try and use some canned peaches I had from a trip to Costco to make a peach compote and a peach buttercream vanilla cake, which apparently was the nicest cake I have ever made. I have subsequently, because of how much my best friend and her family raved on about this cake, tried to make the exact same cake, but gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free products were used, and it was still pretty tasty. I quite liked it. I mean, I found that with Nuttelex as my base for the buttercream, I could still really taste the butter, but it was really nice. And this peach compote on its own is just sensational, but it makes way too much for the recipe. So I have some little jars of peach compote in my freezer, which now makes it pretty easy for me to whip up one of these amazing cakes. All I have to do is make the cake base, and I still have tons of leftover buttercream, and I just wish I could taste the gluten-filled, dairy-filled, egg-filled version of this cake, because it looked amazing and smelled amazing.
The last few days I've mostly been working in the garden. As you can see, there are tomatoes everywhere. Most of them are still very, very green, which is unfortunate, but we are in now the second month of autumn, so the plants are winding down, and I spent a lot of the last few days winding down some of the garden beds and getting them prepped for autumn and winter crops and early spring crops, depending on how long things like the broccoli take to get going. So I haven't done heaps of preserving other than what's been going in the freeze dryer, which we've already talked about. I have had a hell of a week from a medical perspective, and it's not quite over yet, so forgive me if I don't talk you through all the canning and everything that I'm about to do in great detail. I'm totally exhausted after today. So we're living in a house where we're just doing the best we can, so if there's a mess of tomatoes on the bench, whatever. So I'm going to start with, these are tomatoes that I have been freezing along the way, and I have been de-seeding and chopping up as I go. The reason for doing that is because towards the latter half of summer we were having fruit fly issues, and you would get some tomatoes that you would think had been stung by a fruit fly and they were totally fine, and some that you didn't think had been stung by a fruit fly and they had little grubs in them. So I then became paranoid about freezing any of the tomatoes without cutting them open first, which today, given the low energy, I am very thankful for. We've got 2 days of heavy rain, so we can't go out. Well, we can go outside, but can't go outside and spend time mucking around outside like I've been doing a lot lately, which is good because it's going to make me deal with the inside, and the inside is a disaster zone. But having pre-done all this cooking means that for the recipes that I'm going to start with, 99% of it, I have to do very little work. I do have about 1 kilo of whole tomatoes defrosting that I have to deal with, but most of this I can just dump in and we're good to go. I am going to be making more of the marinara sauce that I have made in the previous canning tomato video because I really like it, and I've made a total of 8 of these 500ml pint jars of it so far, and I think I've only got 3 or 4 left. It's just so nice to know it's homegrown and it's full of healthy stuff, relatively speaking, compared to what you can buy at the supermarket. It's still not perfect because it's got things like sugar and stuff in it, but it's so much better than what you buy at the supermarket. It tastes nice and it's so easy, especially when I've been having a few hard weeks, to actually just dump it on some pasta and head off and have dinner. But we're almost out of it already, and our next tomato season is 9 months off. So we need to make some more. There's no way I'm going to have enough to get me through life, which tells me that I need to plant way more tomatoes. Next year, I thought I had planted a stupid amount of tomatoes for one person, but I'm not going to have enough to do any of the things that I really wanted to do. And I probably had 7 or 8 Roma tomatoes. We certainly lost some to the bush rats and to the fruit fly, but not that many. But yeah, we couldn't leave them on the vine to actually ripen most of the time, because as soon as they start to change color a little bit, they're gone if you don't pick them. And I have a pineapple tomato plant that I got, I think, 1 tomato from. They seem to be a favorite of the blackbirds and the bush rats. There are 2 more out there that are immature that are coming too. And we had a couple of golden jubilee, which were pillaged by the birds and the fruit fly, and a pear tomato that was mostly attacked. We had a black blueberry tomato, cherry tomato. We don't really like the flavor of that, probably wouldn't grow it again. And a Valentine tomato, which is also a cherry tomato, which I liked. But if I want to have canned diced tomatoes next year, canned tomato sauce next year, and tons more marinara sauce, and all home canned salsas and things like that, then I need to grow a ton more tomatoes than I did this year. So if I have a look at the tomato sauces that we buy from the shops, I was reading something the other day that said like 1/3 of this bottle is sugar. So that's why I've really decided that I want to make my own ketchups and tomato sauces and all of that next year. And yeah, I need a lot more tomatoes. So I'm going to start with the marinara sauce, because these diced tomatoes are going to defrost and be manageable faster. And I'm going to get that going on the, I was going to say on the shelf, I'm so tired, on the stove, and get that going, because that takes about 2 hours to do. Then I have lemon juice, which we harvested from the previous house, defrosting to make some more strawberry lemonade concentrate, because I love that, even though I don't drink it as much as I should. I drink stupid store-bought chemical stuff, and I need to get back onto this, and I need my lemon tree out the back to grow big and strong. I also want to can more tomato and peach salsa, and I cannot for the life of me find the recipe that I used last year. So I think I found something that's pretty close. It needs coriander. For some reason I don't have any coriander in the garden. So I planted some yesterday, but I do have some freeze-dried stuff, and that should be enough to get us through that recipe, because that has been a lifesaver with the no dairy part of my allergies, because normally I would put things like cheese on nachos or on burritos and things like that, but I really love this when I make it with a mild spice. Peach and tomato sauce, where I just dump it on and I don't even miss the cheese. So that's been fantastic, and clearly health-wise it's going to be better for me than something I'm not tolerant of. So I want to get that done, but I haven't defrosted the peaches and the other tomatoes that I have in the freezer, because I was looking for the recipes and talking to doctors and doing things like that, and I've got enough stuff defrosting until I get this going. We have got beef bone broth in the fridge that I need to come out here, remove the fat, and get them going. And we've got turkey broth with some pig trotters in here for the puppuccinos, which we probably won't have enough to can, but we'll see. Birthday girl Marley Sue will be very keen to get some broth, as it's one of her favorite things about holidaying down here. But we got a lot to do, and only a couple of days left at home, well, after a very stressful week off. And we're just going to try and get as much as we can done. And obviously I need to deal with the mess of tomatoes. And we've got some spring onions or shallots or whatever you want to call them that need to be diced up, chucked in the freezer, and readied for freeze drying next time I freeze dry. And then I've just got 60,000 billion kilos of meat to defrost and make next month's worth of puppy meals out of. So I do have I don't know if you can see them in the camera, a ton of Tupperware boxes just here ready to go, ready for Puppy Food Central, but I don't want to deal with that today. I want to get as much of this done because it's a messy process to make the puppies meals, and it's really like I need to be home to monitor that the kitchen bench is not being monitored too carefully or mounted by any particular dog who's feeling a bit snackish. Anyway, that's enough jibber jabber. I'm going to get into this and I will see you guys on the other side. Deseeding the tomatoes while they're this amount of frozen was actually quite easy because you can just pop the seeds out, and the nice part is you don't lose all the juices all over the table like I did last time. So the flesh and the juice that's associated with this part of the tomato is about 60% of the tomato. The core and the seeds is the other 40%. So now I've just got to do the maths to work out how much potato-wise, why always? How much tomato-wise I have, so then I can balance everything out. I've busted out my big water canning pot to do this in, and I think the difference in terms of how full it looks, and this technically, if the seeds account for and the core accounts for 40%, is a double batch. I think last time, because they were much softer, they were all kind of pulverized and a lot of the juices had fallen out on the kitchen bench, and I de-skinned them as well, so they weren't in whole chunks and holding their shape as well. So I am going to treat this as a double batch and hope for the best. But what I have learnt from this is that ideally I need to weigh the tomatoes as I prepare them for the freezer, which is difficult to do when you're doing them on Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. But next time I will do better, and I guess that's why we call this the Learning Gardener. Oh, the other thing is I'm out of dried rosemary, and you really need dried rosemary for this recipe. So there's a lull in the rain, and I'm going to go to the shops now, which is super annoying. But it is what it is, but I might buy a couple of rosemaries so this doesn't happen again, because I've got tons of everything else, because I hate running out of things in the middle of recipes. But here we are, running out of things in the middle of recipes. These tomatoes are so much juicier than last time I made this, so definitely think that having them frozen and then de-seeding them saved quite a lot of the tomato in this case.
or the tomato liquid anyway. I just wanted to show you guys why I'm thinking about having 3 beds of strawberries. This is all organic Costco frozen strawberries. This is 10 cups. We're going to make a double batch of the strawberry lemonade concentrate. And this is 2 cups of homegrown strawberries. This is all that made it in from outside, and look at the color difference. And they're so much juicier and tastier than normal strawberries, and I just cannot believe the color difference. It's just ridiculous. I don't know if the camera is adequately showing the difference in the 2 colors of strawberry. It's just phenomenal. You can see how much, except the camera just fogged up, how much this tomato sauce has actually thickened. So I'm just going to blitz this up, get it in the cans, wash out this pot, and get them canning before I start the lemonade concentrate. I don't think I'll ever get over how much sugar is in this lemonade strawberry concentrate, and I didn't even put the full amount, but I put pretty close to the full amount because I am concerned about messing with the recipe. But it's the same as with jams. It just horrifies me with how much sugar, both natural and from the white sugar bag, are in each of these recipes and in things like jams and things like that. So sometimes I wonder how healthy home preserved foods are. Sure, they've got better base ingredients, but if you're still putting a ton of sugar in them, yeah, I don't know, but I do love this concentrate mix, and I was really happy with how it turned out, especially compared to last time I made it. It just has such a beautiful color. The next morning I thought I'd made so much progress canning the day before that I would try and finish off the tasks that I had put on my to-do list and just see if I had some success. So I scraped the fat off the broth and warmed it up so that I could strain it. The ones that had turned into more of a gel, the ones that hadn't, I just strained the fat out of them and got them ready in the jars for pressure canning. On my induction stove, it takes a long time to get up to a pressure of 10 to then can the broth. While the pressure slowly increased in the pressure canner, I got the next batch of broth out and got that ready to go into the fridge to cool down over the next couple of days. This one was a turkey broth, and I actually really like making turkey broth both because Marley Sue's tummy can tolerate it. Marley Sue is my mum's senior dog who we'll be looking after for a month, and obviously broth is going to be very good for achy joints. But I also really like it because it only takes 2 batches of turkey broth to actually get the bones to crumble so that they can break down really easily and go in your compost bin. Then it was time to focus on getting more things out of the freezer. So I got out the diced mango that I had worked on over summer after picking up loads and loads of mango from Costco, and I had picked up some organic blueberries, and I was going to be making my favorite mango and blueberry syrup that I put on my pancakes. I just absolutely love this syrup. You have to give it a try. I tried to be efficient with my time and make sure that I was always doing something while I was waiting for an alarm to go off. So this time I started working on my frozen peaches. I just froze them whole and I was cutting them up and getting them ready for the tomato peach salsa. I was really happy with the way the recipes turned out this time. Normally recipes I find say that you should expect, for example, 7 pints of this recipe and I will only get 4 or 5. This time with the blueberry syrup I definitely got what they said I would, and I was really happy with that because then it meant I have more product canned up on my shelf. and I really love this product. So I had made a double batch, so I was really excited to now have 12 jars ready to go. By this point, I was feeling really proud of myself and really productive, so I decided to get the peach tomato salsa going, and it doesn't actually take that long to make. It's more, I had an issue with the processing time because I couldn't confidently find the recipe that I had exactly used last year. I wasn't super sure. And the processing time was 10 minutes in this recipe, which felt like not a long time. So I did some Googling and I tried to find something that seemed like a happy medium, but I still wasn't sure. So in the end, I processed them for about 15 to 17 minutes, which I'm still not sure if it's long enough. And while they were in there processing and water bath canning, I checked the lids on the other products that we canned the day before getting these guys out of the water bath canner and wrapping up for the day.
This weekend, the goal was to try and push myself to can as much as I could. I didn't realistically think I would get everything canned, but we did. It happened, guys. We got everything I wanted to canned. We even got more of each individual type of recipe canned than I'd hoped for. It is definitely easier the second year of canning because I've made all these recipes before. I know I like them. I know how much roughly I need. I know what size jars are preferable for a one-person household or for when I have guests over. So it has been, in a way, an easier experience because I knew I would use X amount of product. But the same problems continue even though I'm in a larger kitchen now. There's only so many pots you can put on the stove at one time, especially when you're talking about large pots. I only have so many large pots, and just the sheer volume of dishwashing that there is just unreal. And I always find that with recipes in general, but particularly with canning recipes, they give you an estimate in terms of how long it should take you to do this. And it takes so much longer, and I don't know if it's just me or what the situation is, but it takes forever by the time you've given it however long it needs to process, plus the cooling time, and then done everything else as well. I particularly find pressure canning in this kitchen more difficult, and I try and avoid it, to be honest, because on the induction stove it takes forever for things to heat up, and takes forever for the pressure to come up, whereas on the gas stove it was much easier to adjust and to get things going. But we got there in the end. We've got 7 jars of human bone broth, which human bone broth in my world is broth that has onions in it. Puppy bone broth is broth that does not. So that is how they were differentiated in my pantry: human bone broth and puppy bone broth. And then obviously the variety of meat that was used, in this case beef. We got marinara sauce from homegrown tomatoes. We've got beautiful strawberry lemonade concentrate, which was one of the first things I ever canned, and I love it. I just forget I have it in the pantry, and I need to put more effort into remembering that rather than drinking chemical crap from the supermarkets. But this is actually a really beautiful rich red, which it wasn't last time, and I think some of that is because I put my own strawberries in, the few that made it actually inside. Most of them just got eaten before they even got near the deck stairs. And the vibrancy of the red of those strawberries when they're pureed is unreal. The other strawberries this time I used organic frozen strawberries from Costco. They were not as vibrant, but perhaps better quality than the ones I used last year. I remember that last year I was horrified by the amount of sugar that goes into the concentrate, so I did reduce it a little bit. I can't remember how much I reduced it by, but this year I probably left out maybe 1.5 cups, because I'm scared that if I cut out all of these ingredients that I'll mess with the acidity, or it'll go brown. And so I don't know if these are brighter because I maybe cut out more sugar last time, or if it's just the effect of having the juicy home strawberries. But that has convinced me that, yeah, we're going to do 3 beds of strawberries, because we need to be growing more of our own because they're so amazing. Then I made 12 jars of the blueberry mango syrup. Last year I made a variety of blueberry syrups and spreads and things. Most of them weren't actually very syrupy. They kind of solidified like a jam, whereas the blueberry mango syrup was, and it was so tasty. The only problem with these guys is I forgot to put the almond extract in, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. It shouldn't affect the acid balance. There's still lemon juice in each one, so should be fine. And to be honest, now that I've found a pancake recipe which I like, which previously was a struggle street for me, even though it's gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, you would think it would be taste-free, but they're quite tasty, especially with this stuff on them. That is exclusively what I use this for, although you could probably put it on ice cream as well. And then we have tomato and peach salsa. This stuff I like, and I definitely prefer it when I cut the spicy ingredients significantly. I am not a spice person. I couldn't find the exact recipe that I used last time, and I thought I had a print off of it in the pantry, but I couldn't find it because the house looks like a bomb's gone off. So I think I've got a very similar recipe. We will see when we taste it. I am yet to check the seal on these. They need to sit for a little bit longer, but we got 48 jars in total. We also did some other food preservation-y stuff, which I can't even remember now because it's been a long 48 hours. I still have to deal with the tomatoes that are falling all over the table. I still have to cut the spring onions or the shallots or whatever you want to call them. We've got another batch of turkey broth in the slow cooker right now that's almost finished, and I'm debating whether I'll let it go for a little bit longer and then deal with it next week when we get home from work, and obviously freeze it and things like that, or if we will pull it out in the next hour or so, put it in the fridge so it can cool down, and then I can get any fat off easily, which is part of the reason why pressure canning takes a while, because I've got to warm everything back up. But I do find it easier to just get all the fat out. And I have 4 or 5 jars of other turkey broth in the fridge, and this also has pork trotters in it, so it should have a lot of lovely gelatin for the pups in it, which is really good. And turkey broth is something that Marley Sue can have, and I love making turkey broth because it only takes like 2 loads with those bones before they kind of crumble in your fingers, and then I put that in the compost, and it's nice to know that that calcium is going to be going into the soil and breaking down and feeding my wormies. which, speaking about worms, I just went out to my worm farm and it's only a small worm farm, drained 15 litres of liquid from the bottom after that rainstorm, which is unreal. So I don't know how my little wormies are inside. But anyway, and we've got a few trees of our privacy trees that have flopped over. So there is a lot to be done. So I am done in the kitchen for this week and this weekend. I don't want to be standing still on my feet in here any longer. I need to deal with the bomb site that is this house. But I hope you guys have enjoyed hanging out with us. I think this is definitely the most I've ever canned in by far in a 48-hour period. But I feel like I haven't counted how many jars I have, but I feel like this is like maybe a quarter of the jars that I have. And it's all condiments and things like that. So I would really love to be able to make some sort of meals in a jar and things like that. Although I feel like a lot of them require pressure cooking, which immediately turns me off. But if you have any great recipes, let me know. And I need to get organizing in the pantry and get these things put away. I'm so excited that we got them out of the freezer, and at least now I've got some room maybe for the turkey broth. And yeah, there's a lot still to be done this weekend, and I better get to it. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I hope you've enjoyed this video.